Hello guys. Been a few weeks, so been about 5 weeks I think, so yeah, a lot happening. Thought we'd do a live stream, do an hour or so maybe if everyone wants to chat. Quite a bit going on at the moment. Having a read on the Fed talking about sort of speeding up their tapering of bond buying. Quite interesting. They were doing $120 billion a month of mortgage-backed security buying and treasury buying. They were talking about reducing that by 15 billion a month every month from now until it's down to zero, and they're now saying they may do that faster than expected. And he's finally caved in. It's a good time to retire the word transitory to describe inflation. So we've had sort of best part of a year saying this is temporary, it's transitory inflation, and now we're saying it's longer lasting than transitory. Maybe not years and years and years, but yeah, it's not temporary and all going to go back to normal sort of very soon. So I thought that was quite interesting. Worth having a quick read on this. But yes, hello everybody. Hello JF. What is your job? I'm in construction. I don't generally say much more than that, but it's well, in the office in construction. Not particularly fancy job. I'm on basic 20% tax rate, so that should sort of give you a reasonable idea. Hello, Mr. P. I'm all well, yes. Hello, Adam. Yes, yeah. Got over my annual cold. Always seem to get something. But yes. Need another vaccine, don't we? Shouldn't say that. I'll get put to the bottom of the algorithm now, won't I? I haven't seen what they sort of the full detail of what they were talking about. So they've added $4.5 trillion to their $8.7 trillion balance sheet. This is all on top of the sort of fiscal policies, the big sort of infrastructure plan and that sort of thing. You know, the sort of 1 trillion plan, 3 trillion plan that they've been pushing through, had a couple last year. So it's a hell of a lot of money. So he didn't indicate how much the taper would accelerate, but they're thinking maybe 30 billion a month. So it would go from what it is now to zero in 4 months. Be interesting. And they're pricing in at least 2.25% interest rate rises next year, and a third by December. So 3 in 2 in 2022 and a third by December. I take it they don't mean next month, so that's 3 next year. And a good time to stop calling inflation transitory. So, yeah, that'll presumably have an effect. Seeing a bit of, well, people calling it a bloodbath in stocks. I don't think this is anything yet. If we start getting all this, if we get a couple of rate rises and sort of the money printing effectively being turned off, in 4 months, and could be in for some rough times. Mr. P, do you use Binance? Was thinking about opening an account to take advantage of staking options. I do have a Binance account, but last I tried to deposit, they're not allowing bank transfers in the UK. I think, yeah, they're sort of having issues with the Financial Conduct Authority. So the sort of between them and the banks, they've been blocked, and you can only use sort of debit card transactions, which they charge like 1.8% to deposit, so don't really want to use them at the moment. You can transfer crypto there and then sort of exchange and then transfer it somewhere else that you can withdraw, but it just seems too much effort, to be honest. There's fees obviously to transfer it from one exchange to the other, so I've just been using Coinbase Pro and FTX for sort of some of the newer stuff that I've been buying. JF, what's your favourite Pokemon? My favourite Pokemon is Gengar, I would say. So that's quite a nerdy answer, I would say. Old school, used to play Pokemon Red on the Game Boy. Hello, Westy. Does Bitcoin create a new low below 53,600? I wouldn't have thought so. I mean, nothing's out of the question with Bitcoin. It's been rather choppy the last few days. This is in pounds. I tend to look at it in pounds because I'm still potentially looking at selling some in the next month. I take it you mean that sort of spike low. I mean, it's only been 2 days, so yeah, anything's possible. We do have a CME gap, I believe, because it seems to do this quite often. You sort of, in the run-up, CME opens about 11 PM Sunday night, and you sort of get a run-up right before 11 PM, and then so it opens with a gap. So I think the gap is sort of around about here on the CME, and we haven't come back down to it yet. So it's not sort of set in stone that it has to fill it every time. There's plenty of unfilled gaps, but yeah, it does seem to more often than not. So I wouldn't be surprised, but yeah, I do think sort of if you're you're interested in sort of buying and staying patient, then sort of a couple of $1,000 maybe. If you're waiting to get in, you could potentially miss out on sort of the big run up if we do get it. Presumably it's not going to be peaking at the end of the year now, but could be going into sort of Q1. But yeah, for the sake of 3 or 4 months, that's nothing in stocks. Oh, Kamik, what do you think about Boohoo stock? I don't really follow Boohoo that much. I am actually a mod on Osborne Foreman's Discord. Sort of keep an eye on his YouTube. He's very heavy on Boohoo. But I sort of prefer the rival in ASOS. Just seem a little bit sort of cheaper on valuation. Sort of tending to be at the moment round about the same as Boohoo in market cap, and sort of obviously much larger revenue and profits. So we sort of think, yeah, Boohoo are growing faster, but will they actually be growing faster than ASOS when they actually catch up to ASOS's revenue and profit? Would expect that sort of growth to slow down. So yeah, if they get to ASOS's profit and revenue and are then not growing any faster, then yeah, not really sure where the market cap would go. So yeah, if I if I sell some crypto sort of over the next month in any large amount, I'll be buying ASOS, I would have thought. Mr. P, can you go over your thoughts on Johnson & Johnson company changes? You have the stock and not sure what this means. Yeah, so from what I'm reading, they're sort of splitting into 3 companies, sort of medical devices company, and then a sort of standard medical pharma company, and then sort of a consumer products. Going to end up sort of almost like a Unilever, sort of maybe Reckitt Benckiser, sort of Unilever without the food, basically. I forget the sort of the brands that they've got. Sort of they've got Listerine and all sorts. So yeah, sort of going to end up as a sort of Unilever Reckitt Benckiser type thing, which I think a lot of people don't really want if that's by itself. They sort of like the idea of and I like the idea of all of that lot being all together, sort of a little, almost a healthcare ETF. So yeah, I'm certainly considering selling out of it and maybe putting it into something like Bristol Myers Squibb, just sort of until this all sort of breaks up and you see where we are, really. Because I wouldn't be all that keen to hold the consumer goods side of things, and maybe the other 2 companies are sort of, if they're pharma only and sort of medical devices, they might end up being a high valuation. So yeah, not too sure about Johnson & Johnson. Hello, compounding investor. Might consider Rolls-Royce if you see another big dip. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people sort of mention Rolls-Royce. I see they had sort of, was it 1 profitable quarter? You probably know better than me, but I think I'd need to see sort of a bit more than that. I mean, they were, if I remember, declining in revenue before COVID. I know they've had sort of fair amount of troubles. So, well, maybe not sort of declining terribly. That's only 3 years, admittedly, but it didn't look all that good. Gross profit sort of declining quite heavily all the way into COVID, and then obviously it's not been great. But yeah, it's risen sort of recently. Net profit, they've gone net profit positive again. But yes, I know they got a sort of a monopoly type thing, but not all that keen on them, to be honest. I will keep an eye on them, but I think I would rather sort of wait until they have at least 2 or 3 years of profitability, maybe, or maybe sort of a year. And if I miss a move in, a decent move upwards, then I'll probably just live with that. Hello, Simon. What do you think about Microsoft? I mean, yeah, I've obviously missed out on this. It's on my doomsday list, as they call it. But yeah, it's growing sort of heavily, obviously, but you're paying an awful lot for that. I mean, biggest company in the world. I take it they're still the biggest company in the world. Maybe not today. See, Apple's gone up a little, but yeah, forward PE of 36, nearly 37. Price to sales of 14.5. I mean, yeah, I guess if they can keep up revenue growth, not sure how fast you really can keep going at 2.5 trillion. What their revenue is, $176 billion is a hell of a lot. Yeah, I think I would want sort of forward PE of 25 really. That's sort of the most I would be paying really. What's my favourite semiconductor stock and why? Probably, I mean, I was sort of back and forth on Intel really, but I think in terms of sort of the monopoly type aspect, I would say Taiwan Semiconductor. Again, they are a little bit expensive, but I think with very good reason. They've come down a bit. I wouldn't mind adding really here. So forward PE of 25, nearly 26. Some of the other stats are a little bit off because it's in it's not in US dollars, but the trailing and forward PEs are correct as I understand. And yeah, they're sort of Intel are looking to build their foundries, but that's going to be a long way off. So as far as I understand, it's basically them and Samsung, and that's about it. And some sort of secretive Chinese manufacturers, but they don't seem to do a great deal outside of China. So yeah, you get sort of Apple coming out with their new chip, and everyone sort of starts to worry, and then you hear, yep, it's still being made by Taiwan Semiconductor. They have, as far as I understand, still a fully exclusive deal for all the iPhones, iPads, everything is all manufactured by TSMC. Yeah, and you hear sort of, you know, Alibaba coming out with their new chip, and they're saying even they may not even be using the sort of the Chinese fabs. Either they may even be going to Samsung or TSMC. I haven't seen any news on whether that was actually confirmed yet, but yeah, just seems like anyone who's designing anything sort of any quality ends up with them. So I would happily pay sort of forward PE of 25. Hello, Make a Wish. Interesting name. Thoughts on Ethereum? How much do you hold, and what is your price target, and by when? So I've got 14 Ethereum. It's sort of trickling down ever so slightly when I keep moving other currencies sort of around, because it takes a little bit of fees out of that, so it's probably just under 14 now. But yeah, I don't really have sort of price targets on the sort of the altcoins, to be honest. I tend to sort of think I'll sell them depending on where Bitcoin's at, unless they go sort of completely bananas. I sort of said when we're steadily above sort of $70,000 Bitcoin, then I would probably start selling off a portion of the portfolio. And yeah, I would probably sell off Ethereum pretty much whatever it is when Bitcoin gets there, to be honest. I presume Ethereum would probably outperform Bitcoin sort of going into that run, if we have that run. So yeah, that would probably be it. Sell pretty much, you know, maybe 3 or 4 Ethereum when Bitcoin gets to 70-odd thousand, pretty much regardless of what Ethereum is, unless it crashes. When hospitals eventually get back to normal, could there be an upsurge in hip replacements? Wow, that's very specific. If this is the case, could Smith and Nephew be a winner? I don't know Smith and Nephew. I've heard there is a chap on Osborne's Discord, actually, who I think has mentioned Smith and Nephew. Take it. And Smith and Nephew, yeah. I don't even know what they do, to be honest. 11 billion. So take it if these stats are correct. Forward P of 17. And they're a medical devices, knee implants, knee replacements and hip implants. Well, fair enough. That's very specific. I gather hospitals are sort of postponing and putting off non-emergency procedures and that sort of thing while COVID's there. But yeah, potentially, I guess. Interesting play. Simon, are you considering LVMH? I'm always considering LVMH. I just don't ever buy any. I think sort of it'll be one that I'll just have to force myself into when I come out of crypto, I think, to be honest, and just sort of accept a little bit like TSMC maybe, and sort of me starting to buy a little bit of growth stocks. I bought a little bit of Google and a little bit of Apple and that sort of thing. I think maybe if I sort of, when I'm largely out of crypto, I'm going to want some growth stocks. So yeah, I might have to just force myself, accept that it's a bit high, and yeah, just buy some. I mean, forward PE of 30, it just seems a lot to me, but yeah, they don't ever seem to come down particularly. Had a bit of a drop last year with the crash, but seems pretty solid. They don't have the revenue growth that, you know, the big tech does, though. I mean, 42 billion to 54 billion in 4 years. I mean, good, but it's not, you know, super growth stock good. Net income, yeah, so net income's up 85%. So yeah, that's very good. Yeah, so that's sort of basically my thoughts, really. I like them. I really like the sort of diversification of the company. A lot of different brands, a lot of different sort of, you know, it's clothes, it's handbags, it's champagne, it's everything. But yeah, don't really want to buy at the moment. But yeah, if I'm all stocks pretty much with just a little bit of crypto, then I would probably force myself to buy it as long as it's still on sort of forward PE of 30-ish. Much more than 30, I think that's getting a bit too much then. But certainly if it comes down, you know, in any sort of downturn that I was now looking at, then yeah, I would probably be buying then. Smith and Nephew made Andy Murray's hip. I didn't know he had a hip replacement, to be honest. Interesting. What do you think, Mr. P? What do you think about the price of Lucid? Seems very overvalued considering they're not making any money. Well, yeah, I think that's just a bit ridiculous. Same with Rivian, really. They're both sort of in the same boat, not really doing a lot. I think people sort of hear about the EVs, and sort of a lot of people obviously wanting to buy the next Tesla, and I think the general thinking is that sort of the legacy auto companies can't make EVs, or even if they are making EVs, they're never going to make a profit on them because they're having to convert from petrol and diesel, or they are just oblivious. And you just see so many people asking for, you know, if we know any EV stocks, and you think, well, you know, Volkswagen are potentially looking at 750,000 electric vehicles this year. Tesla are at 1 million. You know, Rivian are sort of hoping to be at 100,000 in 2 or 3 years, I think it was. And yeah, I haven't seen sort of whether Rivian have come down, but at one point they were sort of 30 billion more than Volkswagen. So yeah, they're at $105 billion, so they have come back down below Volkswagen. But yeah, with no revenue, that's a touch ridiculous. Even at this sort of knockdown price, as we'd call it. So sort of peaked out at about 170 after IPOing sort of at, in the hundreds. So if you bought the IPO, you're still up, but wouldn't be keen on that. And I think Lucid are very much the same, to be honest. I think they're maybe slightly, ever so slightly ahead of Rivian, $87 billion. I mean, so they've had a big spike in sort of the last month. Crackers, really. So they were at 52, basically what they're at now in February. Just goes in hype cycles. But yeah, I'm still back in Volkswagen and Stellantis, and maybe a little bit of Renault as sort of speculation. Kamik, what would you buy right now, looking at declines in the US stock market? I'm sort of still interested in a great deal, really. There's sort of quite a lot that I would be buying. I mean, probably Volkswagen would be the main one that I want to buy. Maybe Prosus, or sort of wanting Tencent, but I'd buy it through Prosus. Activision, I am looking at Activision, to be honest, sort of around the sort of Nintendo valuation now. I'm not a huge fan of sort of the game library, to be honest. They don't seem to be growing a huge amount. The sort of the Call of Duty games have come, numbers were sort of trailing off until the last two, and then the last two have done pretty well of the main games. But Blizzard seem to be declining, so it seems a reasonable buy now, Activision, but not 100. I think I'd be more bullish on Nintendo, to be honest. And then as far as sort of other stocks go, I think I would be pushing more towards Volkswagen and Prosus. Round Metal, hello. Waiting for the article, Lucid doubles annual truck production by making another 50. Yeah, I know, you see all the sort of memes and jokes, Rivian sort of going from 2 per day to 3 per day, and people call that a 50% increase. I think it's a little bit of a joke, really. The sort of, you watch the Tesla videos and that sort of thing, and they seem pretty unanimous that pretty much all of legacy auto is going to be bankrupt within 5 years, certainly by the decade, as they all say. But not really agreeing with all that. Compounding investor, do you have a cash reserve to snap up bargains in a market correction? I don't. I've got about £2,000, which is emergency fund, basically. I sort of tend to believe in diversification, sort of thinking if something crashes, I might have something that's either sort of not crashed or is potentially even up with the sort of gold and silver miners and that sort of thing, various sort of value stocks, and could potentially sell something that's up to buy the dip rather than sort of having cash and losing the sort of, or paying the opportunity cost, if you like, of having it in cash for any sort of significant length of time. So I've never really been, I mean, maybe in a sort of a normal environment, but not sort of as we are now with the money printing and inflation, that sort of thing. I just think the cost of having cash on the side, it might look good if there's a drop of 10 or 20%, and then you're sort of buying the dip with cash, but you may be sort of ignoring the fact you've missed out on a 30% gain in the market at the time that you've been holding the cash. So that's sort of my thoughts on sort of holding. I see a lot of people saying hold 10, 20% of your total portfolio in cash. sort of waiting for these dips. And then, yeah, I just sort of think, it might look good at the time when you're sort of buying things that are 10, 20% down, but you've sort of got to ask yourself whether you've really made money in a sort of total return basis, considering the time that you've held that cash to the sort of return, say 1 or 2 years after you buy the dip. So now I tend to be basically 100% invested, all bar an emergency fund. So every week, if I can I don't invest every week, but fairly often I'll sort of invest £500, say, and then, maybe miss a week and invest again. But as soon as I get sort of 500 quid available to put in, I'll put it in, whether it be stocks or crypto in some form. Mr. P, can you share some of your investing lessons that you've learned on your journey so far? Anything I would have done differently if I was starting again? Investing lessons, I would say sort of stay patient. That's what I always say. Not sure sort of what I would do differently that much, really. The sort of portfolio's gone reasonably well. I may have sort of bought into a little bit of hype here and there. Would probably say maybe do a little bit more sort of analysis, sort of fundamental analysis. I probably should have done a little bit more of sort of, discounted cash flow modelling and that sort of thing to get more of a solid sort of projection of companies. I tend to sort of look at the stats that they've got, as things currently are, and maybe don't put quite as much research into that side of things. I tend to sort of be, at the moment, thinking if I've got quite a wide variety of stocks, then if I do sort of a huge amount of research on a particular stock, and it's 1% of my portfolio, then it's not really going to make all that much difference. So I have been sort of lacking on that a little bit. Probably when I hopefully get out of crypto, I would probably I want to be doing sort of probably reading a bit more investing books, and maybe do a course or two, even if it's just a free course. And I would probably say maybe if you're newer, it probably does want to be a more concentrated portfolio and sort of do more research, do a bit of discounted cash flow modelling. If you sort of look at Sven Carlin's free course, and sort of you can use his discounted cash flow model, sort of a fairly basic model. Have a play around with that, and get a better idea on sort of valuing the company. I think that is probably where I've lacked a little bit, and sort of then you think you're buying a reasonable price and it's come down, and then you get earnings downgrades and that sort of thing, which maybe I could have seen coming if I'd done a little bit more research. So I've never really sort of thought about investing lessons and what I would do again differently. Have I heard of Fluffy Coin? Come on, is that a real thing? Bia Heezer released a video on it recently. He made $4 million in one day. You can make a fortune in sort of any coin, really. A lot of them are pumping ridiculously. You've only got to sort of go on CoinMarketCap homepage, and you'll see sort of College Coin Network up 700% in a day. You can stick a bit of leverage maybe on some of these. I don't know if you would get leverage on tiny coins like this, but some of these, biggest gainers for the day, I've seen, 10,000% up in a day, 50,000% up on some of these really, really small caps. fluffy coin. It's called Fluff. Lovely. Yeah, rank 3,362. So 1 million, or nearly $2 million market cap. Only 1 billion tokens. Obviously. Oh, what is that? Oh yeah, 600 million circulating supply. So that's not horrendous. I mean, there's large caps with more coins than that. But yeah, presumably this has had an almighty pump. So what's that? 7.5. Yeah, so it's 3x. Has it done any more sort of? Or is that, yeah, that's as old as it is, so it's a week and a half old. Not sure quite how you would make $4 million on that, but yeah, I'm not going to watch the video. I think this is probably... Don't like to knock projects without sort of doing any research, but you have to sort of say pump and dump or scam coin, I'm afraid. So many of them are. I mean, there's 3,000 coins, you know, just sort of going up to there's like 12,000 coins in total. Probably half of that is dead coins from years ago that just haven't completely died. He created the coin and his followers bought it. Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, there's loads of YouTubers, you know, I think, is it Tech Lead created the million coin or something, and yeah, it's just people trying to sort of get a quick buck off their followers, basically. He didn't sell it as he didn't want his fans to go broke. I mean, if there's no real utility to the coin, then the guys are going to go broke eventually anyway if they hold it. I mean, if it's a very short-term trade, then maybe, but who are you selling to? You know, you're selling to a bag holder, presumably. If it's a week and a half old, that just, yeah, it's a YouTube audience pump and dump, essentially. Yeah, I think it's a shame that people end up getting into this sort of thing. It's money that could be sort of flowing into the large caps and the main coins, and they would sort of presumably make some money longer term rather than sort of flipping stuff like this. I mean, admittedly, I'm getting into a little bit of NFTs now, so that is a little bit speculative and sort of, you know, been looking at the film tokens again, Cinesoul, that I was sort of mentioned in my video earlier in the week, or last week. Do think this is quite an interesting project, though. Not 100% sure whether it'll go anywhere, but yeah, some nice artwork. So I've been buying a few more of these, buying a few other sort of projects with games and that sort of thing. I had another one. It was Vishiv. So it's sort of a space simulator. They've sort of launched a sort of a very basic alpha of the game. It's sort of playable online, and yeah, I think that one's sort of about 10x up since I bought it. That's sort of the only one I've got that's done really, really well. I think I am still ever so slightly down, well, probably about break even now with that one that's gone up. So yeah, a few things a few mistakes that I've made early on buying some of the garbage NFTs, but yeah, it's been interesting. I've sort of had a few days off, so interesting to sort of have a play around with these. And I've bought some Solana, essentially, as I've still sort of broke even. I've still got about 12 Solana, so yeah, interesting. But yeah, I'd sooner be buying even this sort of thing than, you know, fluffy coin. Haven't really put this in any sort of better better reputation than sort of your Dogecoins and your Shiba Inus, really. I'm sure people will say Shiba's got a huge following and huge sort of use case, but I can't see it. I looked at the website, and it just seemed to be sort of creating products, lending, staking, and that sort of thing. They sort of rename it, barking and digging and that sort of thing, and it just seemed to be making this stuff basically for the sake of keeping the pump going, and people sort of not saying, now they'll say it's not a meme token, it's got real adoption and real products and that sort of thing, rather than it just sort of looks like a thrown together sort of lending platform and staking platform and that sort of thing, where you've got sort of real, projects that are doing this properly. You've got Crypto.com coin at 60% of, around about 60% of the market cap. Obviously doing wonders at the moment, doing big sponsorship deals and that sort of thing. And yeah, compared to sort of Shiba Inu, they don't do everything that, they're not really after the same market, I think. But yeah, you got even sort of much smaller caps doing, I would argue, more than Shiba Inu in terms of genuine sort of trade, especially in the sort of DeFi space. And Dogecoin just basically doesn't do anything at all from what I've seen. People are buying it on hype and hope that Elon Musk is going to do something with it. That one's a little bit ridiculous, really. Even if I did make a bit of money out of it. Corzu, how do you pay tax on capital gains, and how do you work out how much gains you've had or how much loss you've had? So there are sort of programs, I think, that you can get. There's I can't remember the name of it, but somebody was using it on the Briscoe, the Paul Briscoe's Discord. Somebody shoot it for crypto. You can link it to your exchanges if you want, and sort of put your figures in there, and that'll sort of give you an idea. I think you have to pay a small amount to actually get the reports, but it'll sort of tell you if you're putting the right info in, and that's sort of a cheap way, I think, to work out capital gains tax on crypto. But yeah, as far as sort of stocks go, you can try and do it yourself, sort of monitor your buys and your sells, keep a record of it in Excel or whatever. But it's a bit big for me, so I've printed out the sort of CSV files from my brokers, or sort of trading 212 really, because that's the only taxable account I've got, and giving that to an accountant, to be honest. From what I gather, the accountants sort of seem fairly happy with a file like that, and should be about £200 to do the tax, submit it for me, and so if you're into sort of if you pass the capital gains tax thresholds, then you've made £12,000 presumably in a year, so £200 to work out the tax doesn't seem all that bad, really. Round metal, waiting for someone to actually make a coin called Shitcoin Millionaire. Yes, that is a lot of this stuff. I mean, as I say, you look on the front page, you can just tell by the names, really, that what people are doing, really. I mean, Elon Balls, there's sort of, 101 different tokens with Elon. You've got Doge Elon Mars, I think, like right up in... can't remember where it was now, but it was fairly high. Let me have a quick look. Doge Elon Mars is at 112, 115. So yeah, nearly $1 billion in what is just, I presume, a copy of either Shiba Inu or Dogecoin. Yeah, a little bit ridiculous. And then anything with moon in the name, and all your safe moons and that sort of thing. A little bit irritating. You sort of hear, like, if you say you're into, people think you're into crypto, and you say, oh yeah, I do like altcoins as well as crypto, as well as Bitcoin, and like a few times, 2 or 3 times, I've had sort of somebody say, oh, you mean things like Safe Moon? And you think, no, I mean things like Ethereum and Cardano and that sort of thing. Proper coins with real adoption. I just think, yeah, you get sort of people pumping this stuff, and it is often YouTubers and sort of Reddit and Wall Street bets and that sort of thing that just whips this stuff up. People end up losing a fortune and then telling everyone they know that crypto is garbage, which is a shame, really. Like I say, they may end up being people that, in a few years, Bitcoin may be at, $200,000 or something, and they'll be asking a friend, oh, how do I get into crypto? When, they could have been getting in now on a real token rather than sort of buying some random coin and losing money on it. But yeah, we do what we can to help these people. I'm there in the Discords and stuff, trying to provide any info I can and help anyone I can on YouTube. Are any of my close relatives investing in it, or is it just yourself? If yes, do you talk about your investments? My family know that I'm in it. Most of them, well, all of them sort of wouldn't touch it with a barge pole. They know I'm in it, and all I get every time it goes up, £100 is, why don't you sell the whole lot? But yeah, some of my friends have asked me about it. One of my friends sort of asked me how to invest when Ethereum was sort of, I think it was about £1,200, so it's £3,500 now, so he's done quite well. Yeah, so I think 2 of my friends have sort of done reasonably well out of it, but no, the family sort of wouldn't touch it really, but they all know sort of I am invested. They don't know how much, and they don't know the YouTube channel either. Any news on 212 filing their accounts? Oh, I haven't seen that actually. Let me have a look. Presume they've still not gone in. Yeah, they are still overdue, so there's a little bit of a worry maybe, but yeah, I sort of presume they've got a COVID extension. Not the end of the world. Would like them to sort of have them in fairly soon. But yeah, I do sort of, I mean, in the construction industry, you do often see sort of companies a bit late on their accounts, and you'll see this exact sort of page on company's house, accounts overdue and that sort of thing. Some of the companies go bust, but yeah, a lot of the time it is just they've delayed things, and that's sort of, in normal times years ago. Now we've got sort of working from home and sort of COVID delays and that sort of thing, then yeah, I expect you're going to get this sort of thing. So yeah, it doesn't bother me a huge amount, it's 2 months overdue, but yeah, I presume if anything, if the worst happens to them, then you probably just end up with a interactive brokers account, which I've been considering opening one anyway as a second broker. So not all that worried about what happens to them. Compounding invest. Have I considered day trading? Not really. No, I could have a sort of practice on one of the practice accounts, maybe IG and or Trading 212 or something. I've got a practice account on Interactive Brokers. Anything that would sort of maybe interest me is sort of options. You can sort of buy some like long dated options on various sort of stocks or indexes. Could maybe sort of insure your portfolio, maybe sort of buying quite long dated, put options and that sort of thing. Sort of, doesn't take really that much money to, they'd be quite cheap, sort of betting on S&P 500, for example, going down quite a bit in the next year and a half, 2 years. I think you can sort of buy these 2 years in advance, and you sort of get a huge payoff if it happens, and if not, you're only sort of paying pence really per contract. So, because no one's expecting sort of 30-40% drop in the S&P 500. So, yeah, that's the only thing I would sort of consider. I'm not really into sort of buying a stock and day trading it over like a few days or even sort of swings of a few weeks. It's not really me. I prefer analysing the company and sort of buying and holding for the long term. It's what's made me money in crypto. So I think I'll do the same with stocks. Your holding time is forever. Well, as they say, you shouldn't. I suppose if you're in dividend stocks, you can live off the income potentially sort of forever. But you maybe don't want to hold forever. Exit strategy, I don't really have one. As I say, the plan is sort of eventually convert most of the crypto into stocks and get to a sort of 4% rule-ish type financial independence number, and sort of semi-retire. I'm looking to semi-retire in a few months and sort of partly live off it and sort of eventually fully retire and live off it. So I think get towards that number and sort of add to all of my stocks and live off that as a portfolio. NH, what good stocks for now? I mean, that's a little bit of a broad question. As I say, I've sort of mentioned earlier on Volkswagen and Tencent, or sort of Prosus. Not financial advice, of course, but those would be sort of a couple that I would be looking at. Looking at sort of various stocks, really. Quite like ASOS, quite like Alibaba here. Just sort of looking down my watch list. What else have we got? Rio Tinto and Vale, maybe. Not too sure about anything else. Maybe Stellantis, Vici Properties, quite interesting here. I think that'd be certainly a few. Oh, Hymax Technologies. I know that's sort of not really on most of my lists, but I am certainly interested in them at the moment. And Glencore. That'd be sort of reasonable set to have a look at. Sylvania Platinum, I always say that's a buy. Hello Mason, how much am I expecting in dividends in December? I don't sort of track this sort of all that well, judging by, I don't think there's many semi-annual ones that I'm expecting. Sort of UK ones are mostly semi-annual, so it's probably just going to be the quarterly ones. I would think probably £500 maybe. That's really mostly for sort of Q3 more than it is December. I don't get that every month. But yeah, I sort of the March, June, September, and December quarters, I think, are generally my bigger quarters. So yeah, I would think probably about £500. We do a video on the big upcoming stocks such as the new Teslas. I mean, I'm not really a growth investor, to be honest. I think there's probably better videos out there for those sort of stocks. I'm just going to end up being more bearish than everyone else and, sounding very cautious. I can't really get into a lot of the big tech stocks at these prices. So yeah, I think probably other channels may be better for you for those sort of companies. If I could only hold one stock for the long term, what would it be? You'd probably pick Unilever or Google. One stock is really sort of pushing it for me. I don't really believe in anywhere near that much sort of concentration. I mean, I've got my sort of spreadsheets with the various companies on. I quite like, as I sort of say, higher conviction ones of those would be sort of Nintendo and Disney. Not really interested in Disney even at today's prices though. Yeah, those are sort of my probably higher conviction. I just love the brands and that sort of thing. But yeah, I wouldn't put all of my money in. I probably wouldn't even put 10% of my money in either of those two. So yeah, I'm not really a one stock kind of guy. Mr. P, what would you do with your time when you become semi-retired or retired? Quite like to, there's quite a few things I'd be sort of looking to do. I quite like the piano. Used to sort of do a bit of that in back in school. Sort of did that in GCSE times and sort of, so I'd be interested in, maybe buying a sort of probably a keyboard rather than a, not going to buy a grand piano. I haven't got the room for it, but yeah, I'd quite like to get into that. Considering sort of game streaming and that sort of thing. Maybe sort of do that on the side. It'd be quite nice to sort of do that and not need the money, so you're not chasing, views, like having to play Fortnite or Call of Duty Warzone because that's where the money is. I could just play whatever game I want and, just play it for enjoyment, really, and hopefully the sort of passion that you'd get for playing something you genuinely enjoy would come through and you might get a bit of an audience. So yeah, few sort of things I've been thinking about. Mason, thank you for your insight. No problem. Ask away if you've got any, or if you want to head off, then we'll see you later. Do you think Google is still in its infancy in the grand scheme of things, as a virtual monopoly on big data? I wouldn't say they're in its infancy. I think they're sort of fairly mature where they are now. They've had a monopoly for quite a while. Sort of Android side, I would think, is certainly fairly mature. Sort of Google search has been around for a fair bit. They're getting competition, plenty of competition from Facebook and sort of various different ad places. I wouldn't say they're in infancy. I would say they have a monopoly, but they are in sort of their mature stage, even if they are growing, 20% a year. Am I planning to leave 212? I don't think so. I think they would still be my main broker unless something goes drastically wrong. I've kept this page open on their company's house. It's not for any sort of particular reason. I can't see any major issues with them. The platform's running sort of pretty flawlessly for whenever I've used it. What the alternatives? I mean, I'm always on the lookout for alternatives. I've got my other account with IG trading, but they're quite expensive on fees and that sort of thing. If you don't trade very often, you sort of get hit with, you know, £8 fees for buying UK stocks, I think. £10 for EU stocks, I think it is, and 0.5% FX fee, where trading 2-on-2 is 0.15. So yeah, you've got sort of free trade and that sort of thing. I don't really like the look of free trade. They're sort of never really been profitable. I say they're crowdfunding yet again. Kind of thinking they're sort of crowdfunding to stay afloat these days. From what I gather, they're still not profitable. So yeah, I would be sort of potentially looking at interactive brokers or sort of anyone new that comes up. There's a lot of sort of newer competitors. I think it's AJ Bell are starting up a sort of app-based one. But yeah, I'll probably just wait for some competition. You tried making money by keeping bees and playing chess. Both did not end well. That's interesting. Got to have a hobby, haven't you? Keeping bees. Very interesting. Thank you for your video updates each week in these live chats. No problem, Mr. P. Anytime. I mean, the videos, I don't put a great deal of effort into the videos, I must admit. Maybe when I go semi-retired, I could put a little bit more effort into them. It's more sort of hoping the chat and the content is sort of interesting rather than the presentation. But yeah, I do enjoy sort of just talking to everyone, really. I quite enjoy being on the Discords and that sort of thing. So yeah, no problem. So I want to ask, what do you think about AMD and metaverse companies in terms of future growth? AMD, I think, is a little bit expensive, to be honest. Where are we? Sort of think people are, they're catching up with Intel in terms of sort of market share, and I think people are projecting that forward as if they're going to sort of completely overtake them. Not really too sure about that. I think Intel are behind on their technology, but yeah, I wouldn't bet on them sort of completely losing their lead. Yeah, you're looking at sort of forward PE of 49. It's a little bit rich for my blood, really. So they're at 195 billion market cap now. You've got Intel. I know they're not completely the same company, but so they're basically at Intel's market cap now, while sort of having, I forget what they're at. So yeah, 14 billion in revenue. If I remember, I may be wrong, but yeah, so Intel make about 50% more in net profit than AMD do in revenue. So that sort of gives you quite a good idea, I think. Intel have got the cash available to reinvest, to get back on top. I think people are just overpaying for AMD. However they get into sort of the metaverse type stuff, don't really know. From what I gather, I thought they were still just in, server chips, CPUs, and a little bit of graphics cards. I think they're behind on the graphics card side of things with Nvidia. So yeah, they're not out in front in that. in that respect. So not 100% sure about AMD. As far as sort of metaverse companies, do quite like the look of Facebook, to be honest. Here, they're not horrendous. I've always sort of been saying they were the one of the sort of fangs that I would leave, to be honest, because I'm not really all that convinced by the main Facebook platform itself. The sort of the thing that gets levelled at you is, it's all about Instagram and potentially what they could do with WhatsApp rather than Facebook, because Facebook does seem to be sort of more for the older people these days. You don't really hear youngsters talking about it anymore. But yeah, so I can't be buying them just for Instagram, but can't deny these figures. I mean, that's, getting on for triple the revenue in 4 years, and over 2.5 times the net profit. Absolutely crazy growth, and yet sort of forward PE of 23. I mean, that's cheaper than sort of plenty of the sort of stalwarts. I think it's cheaper than Procter and Gamble, for example. I'm sure people will see that as a more stable. Yeah, it is 25 forward PE. So you might see Procter and Gamble as more of a safe stock, but yeah, I would go on safe as valuation. I mean, why would people pay that much less than 23 as a forward PE if they've still got that growth, even if there is a crash and tech stocks come down? Not sure Facebook would really come down that much. Obviously, make a hell of a profit margin. You look at Procter and Gamble make 18%, but Facebook are at 36% nearly net profit. So yeah, wherever they're obviously going to be having to invest a great deal in this transition they're wanting to do, but yeah, would probably see them as a reasonable buy if you want to sort of go for this type of thing. Do I have a plan for a Santa rally? I'm not sure really. I mean, sort of gold and silver tend to do quite well going into Christmas and the New Year. So with all of this, talk of tapering and that sort of thing, not really all that sure we will get one, to be honest. Wouldn't really call it a rally as well. I always say a rally is an up move in a bear market. I don't count new all-time highs as a rally. I mean, people are saying, calling this a bloodbath. I've seen the word bloodbath used quite a bit. You've only got to look at sort of that for the year to date. You're looking at a little drop from 470 down to 455 on the S&P. So yeah, if you go up sort of maybe into the 475s, 480s, expect it will. I wouldn't really call it a Santa rally as such. But yeah. Okay, we 9:10? I think I'll give it a minute just to see if there's any other questions and probably leave it there. Enjoyed that? Yes, you're welcome. do one again in sort of maybe around Christmas time. See how everyone's doing. All right, I'll leave it there then. We'll see you guys soon.